I like that line in Old School in the outtakes where Will Ferrell's like, I fucking hate your guts, but God damn it, do I respect you.
Yeah.
Such a good one.
That is really good.
Hello and welcome to the Pineapple Podcast. I'm Tyler. This is my friend Matt. Behind us we have Josh and Dave, and we have a special guest on today, Stefanie Vassos.
I don't know if I'm that special, but thanks for the interview.
Oh, I'd say special.
Introduction.
He said extra special. He said extra special earlier, but he cut it out.
I was
Super
demoted.
special.
I was actually extra special. Now I'm just like moderately special. Like, she's cool.
Our scrumtrelescent guest.
Yes.
I don't even know what that means.
That's an amazing. That's just.
I feel like Tyler just made it up.
What
Is that a Willy Wonka reference?
No, it's another Will Ferrell.
Oh.
Oh.
He made it up. It was like a random word he had to make up when he was doing a description, and he had to like take it to
This
the next
is a blooper
level.
reel. Will Ferrell,
just
isn't
another.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Will Ferrell deep cut. Just another
That's
Will
a great
Ferrell
start.
deep cut segment. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, you bet.
It's great to have you. For those of you who don't know already, we go way back with Steph, me, and Josh. Anyways, back
Yep.
to high school days.
Back to high
I'm
school.
gonna guarantee nobody knows that.
Nobody, just a few select.
Nobody.
So,
just
so
some of our
everybody that's
super
joining
fans.
that knows my history.
Wait. They didn't know your entire graduating class of 2003.
Yeah.
Don't be ridiculous.
Oh, I don't know. We got
They got the yearbook out and they're following,
yeah.
each person.
They're like, check. Okay, who's next?
For those of
did
you who
not.
didn't go to Clayton Heights Secondary,
We were Tweedsmuir first, Tyler.
We were tweets.
I guess
Grade
that's true.
eight.
That's where we met. Yeah, grade 8.
Grade 8. I knew
eight.
Josh because we were
What?
always in the same homeroom with our last names. So
You know it.
Oh, why did
Those make
so
kids.
Tweedsmuir? Why did you guys change from Tweedsmuir?
Clayton was just built.
it was overcrowded at
and
Tweets.
Tweedsmuir was
so.
really crowded. Yeah,
Was Clayton way nicer?
it was. Yeah, pretty.
It was brand
fancy,
new.
Yeah.
So it was the,
Oh,
like,
nice.
I went from
fancy.
2,200 kids to 400 kids.
Oh yeah.
For
yeah.
Like Tweedsmuir was so full, and then
Wow.
We
Clayton
didn't even
had-
have a grade 12 class. Like they were like, we don't want to like take the grade 12s away from like their split
Oh,
them
yeah.
up. So like my brother was head of class and Josh's brother, and like then the next year.
9 to 11. Yeah.
Really?
We were the
Yeah.
first. We joined in grade 9. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's funny. And we came from different elementaries.
Yeah.
And then we just
And
kind of
then
merged.
met in
That
grade
was
8
it.
kind of thing? That's
and now we're old, and I realized that that was like a very long time ago. Almost 20 years we've been graduating.
Isn't that
high
nuts?
school. I know.
Yes, Steph was probably technically my like first girl who was also a friend. Really, because I used to
there
be a
you go.
super shy guy and didn't like talk to any girls.
And I'm not shy at all. So
What?
yeah.
I know. It's shocking, but
Like,
no.
hey, I know your cousin.
Yeah.
And then
So that was it.
she
And then
went
we
to
were
school
just
with
like, I was like the token girl in like the AV class. So
yeah, she was a Comtech geek with us.
that was it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Always went for the dramatics.
Yeah. So did you guys met in grade 8 then? That's when you met?
Yeah. And we all went to Clayton grade 9, Comtech grade 10.
Yeah. That was
then-
it.
Yeah. Back in the grade 10 was like the super drinking days from what I remember.
Pardon me. No, the first day I really got really wasted was the last day of grade 10. So
Yeah.
Grade 11, I think, was when things really
Was
fell
when it
off the
took off,
rails.
yeah.
That's wild.
That's going to be when it happens.
I don't
Kids
know.
those days.
Yeah.
I know. Man, I'm glad I never was one.
Right? Yeah. Never.
No, I like teach dance to teenagers now who are between like 14 and 18. And I'm like, oh my God. They come in on like a Monday night session. I'm like, you look a little rough. Like, what is happening? I'm like, oh yeah, no, I still
yeah.
think of you as little babies, but I was a terrible human at your age.
Isn't that funny? Like
Yeah.
when you see it, like I notice that when I see like a cop who's like, he looks younger than me, I'm like, that looks like a little baby. And I'm like, I'm old now.
You're like, am I supposed to have like respect for this young
Yeah, like,
man?
aren't you supposed to be in school?
Go to your room. Yeah, no.
So weird.
We're old
He still
now.
gave
I'm
us
cool
the
with it.
ticket. It didn't matter how much older we were. He still ticketed us. Yeah.
Did you feel as I got older, it's kind of different jobs that I was in, like working with like people who were older than me? Like I remember there was a certain age, maybe around 25, 26, when it was like there was a switch as far as a respect level or like what they would talk to me about. Like everything was like, oh, one day you'll understand, right? And then I remember when it switched where like they would start talking to like these other guys on the
And they were like
crew with
looking
me.
up to you, and you're
And
like,
then
no,
I'm like, oh,
no,
wait.
just respect
Oh,
me
wait,
again.
I'm on this side. Wait, don't you think I should? Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't know. I think it's different. I also lived in like weird places that were like didn't respect women, so that made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And live in West Africa and work with like.
You've had an adventurous life.
Yeah, it was.
Take us there. Like after you graduated, take us on tell us your story a little bit.
Oh God. I went and danced on cruise ships for 2 years because why not?
So when you say danced,
I was stripping. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I was
Family
like,
cruise ship.
I don't know if I should ask this.
No, I was like doing
Family cruise ships.
Yeah.
Things got exciting.
Yeah.
So no, I worked on like cruise ships and like the entertainment cast. So I was classically trained, grew up dancing and in theater and stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I basically got to see 37 countries and 2 contracts. So it was amazing at like 18 and 19 to be like, you're living with people from different countries. You're like getting to know all these different cultures. You're like waking up one day and you're like, I'm in Denmark. And then like the next day you're like, I'm in Norway. So it was just a really cool experience to like be away from your family, but still in like a controlled environment and not just like backpacking and
totally,
full moon partying it the whole time. So it was good.
So was that something that you, how did you make the choice to do that?
I grew up dancing and it was just like one of the things that was at 18, I was like, do I want to move to New York and live in a shoebox or do I want to like different avenues that you could do? And
that's cool.
I just auditioned for it and
booked
so cool.
it.
And I was like, I lied to them and said that I was already 18 and I wasn't. So I had to wait 6 months until I could actually start my contract.
First time you probably ever did that, right?
Yeah, it's the only time I've ever lied about my age. Now I still lie about my age, but in the other direction, yeah.
Turning 25 this year, guys. Wow, what a big age for all of us.
I know. I can't believe
crazy.
it. I know. It's shocking. But yeah, so that was it. I went away and danced and just kind of lived my life for a while there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were out there, was there any place that you're like, I could settle down here?
Settle down? Probably not. But I don't know. I always have everyone's always like, where's your favorite place that you've been? And it really depends on like what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Like there's some really cool tiny little islands in the Caribbean that like are not overpopulated or like over Americanized. Mm-hmm. But then like there's so many cool spots in Europe that you're like, if it's winter, you want to go here. If it's summer, you want to go here. If it's shopping or like romance,
Yeah, that's cool.
So if you ever need advice somewhere to go on a holiday, I'm your gal.
That's awesome. Yeah. I know there was many times I know when my wife and I were traveling, it's like, you get asked that thing. It's like, well, where's your favorite place or where could you settle down? For us, it's always been England. That's our second home. Like, in fact, I would move there in a second. Like I've always absolutely loved it there. We have great friends and family there. But then there's been other parts of the world that you travel in. It's amazing even where you're at, like emotionally, where you're at in life, your friendship base, like what's kind of going on that you can see yourself in these places. Yeah. But yeah, we still love going and just sitting. I was just actually explaining that we'd love go sitting and just watching people's lives and just be like, I wonder what their story is as they walk by. I wonder what their story is. Like we love that aspect of
people watching.
Yeah. And I think coming from like a fairly small town outside of like a proportionately small city, we have this pretty narrow-minded mentality. Like we still have like a lot of different cultures and things around here, but it's still pretty like safe. And I just don't think we get exposed to very much of that. So to like go out there, I don't think I had as much of an appreciation for like how lucky I am as a woman to be able to be respected in a job or like how lucky I was that there's obviously some dangers, but like nothing in comparison to some of the other places we go and we'd literally be told, you have to be back by 10. You cannot go somewhere with less than 2 people and one of them has to be male. Like it was pretty crazy because you're also a liability working on cruise ships. They're like, please make sure that the 18 and 20-year-olds come back safely.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's amazing, though, as your first experience. I mean, that takes quite a bit of, there's a lot of curiosity and courageousness there because to take off straight out of school and go around the world and like on your own, that's like a pretty...
I'm like, I don't know if it took courage. I think I've just always been a little crazy. I was like, I just really want to get out of here and go try something. Yeah.
You've always had that.
Yeah. I get bored easily. So
yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. Like we sometimes don't realize how truly blessed we are to live in the place that we do. Any traveling that I've ever done, any family that's ever come from anywhere has always reminded me of how blessed we truly are to live here.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting when I hear people say things like, I can't wait to get out of here. I'm like, go ahead, because it's a good thing. It's a really good thing to go and experience other culture. And one of the things that like I've always loved doing with my wife is not just, I can't stand like vacationing. I really love investing time into the culture and getting to know, like, like we
immerse yourself.
Yeah.
In it.
And wanting to get, like, cause I think that's, there's many forms of education and that's one of them is being able to like just sit with like a local and start talking to them and hearing their story. The more stories that you can hear from people, the more I believe, like educated that you do come on what and what's out there, because we don't even realize that here. You probably like we don't really need to worry as much about a woman walking around, but there's other parts. I remember, my wife left when she was with her friend. I think they were just at a high school and went. And like I remember her like with the red light district in Amsterdam being like, we got off on the wrong part of the train. And I remember they were just terrified, just the two of them, tiny little girls that were just like, and I remember everybody here was like absolutely like, holy shit, because it was
right.
They hadn't experienced.
Yeah, no, there are some stories I definitely will not tell my parents ever happened. I'm like, nah, we'll just leave those ones out. You know, it's just like you don't realize that you also take for granted how. I'm like, of course I can walk down this street by myself. Like, you know, I live in Gastown. Like, I'm hardcore. No.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, okay, this is how I die. This is it. Not for a few hours still, but I will be dying at the end of this. Yeah.
Or like you must have experienced a lot of craziness too with the, it always made me laugh when people would say how busy it is here. Like, oh, Vancouver's just crazy. It's so busy. And I would laugh. It's like, and I'd be like, you clearly haven't traveled. Because like anybody that's moved from anywhere, like especially I would talk to, you know, be working with professors at UBC and stuff and that had come from India.
Yeah.
And they're like, so this is
easy.
Nothing. And you're like, oh, yeah, right. Because it's all in perspective and that's why I always am fascinated with people's stories.
Yeah.
I love it. I love hearing what people have learned about, like even, so let's go back to you for a second. Where did you do it for, you said you did it for a couple of years?
I did a 6-month contract and a 9-month contract over like a year and a half.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then after that, what did you do?
I had started taking some courses through BCIT into like distance learning because my parents were like, you're away, you got to get something under your belt. So I started taking broadcasting.
Oh, cool.
And I just on a whim, I got I did an internship for the Vancouver Giants and I was running like their media department during the Memorial Cup was there that year. So I was basically making sure that all of the reporters had all of the stats and all of the things that they could refer as they were writing their articles and everything like that. So it was a really cool media internship, and I really wanted to get into sports newscasting. Mm-hmm. Clearly, it didn't. But yeah, so I went from there, and one of the girls that ran like the dance team she was short on a fit model. She worked at Quicksilver for the Roxy side of things, and she was just like, "Will you fit model for me tomorrow?" And I was like 20 or 21. I was like, sure, I'll show up. She's like, yeah, you just get a couple like free bikinis. All I need you to do is when we have a big buyer in town for retail, they need to see the clothes on a body. It's like not like photos or anything. They literally are like, try that dress on. Which one would people buy more? So they're putting in their purchase from Quicksilver. So yeah, I did that for a while. And then I ended up like moving up into like, I worked there for like 5 years and ended up going from like that to working in customer service to being like a sales support to being a sales rep. And then by the time I left, I was like doing all the brand management for all of Western Canada. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Totally a departure from what I studied, but it was a really cool company, like good culture of like career pathing. So
that's all. You must have learned a lot doing that too.
Oh yeah. It was insane. Like by the end I was spending like, you know, a week to 2 down in California every 3 months. Every season we'd have come out, we'd have to go down and like do all of our projections and figure out the marketing, and it was really cool.
Was that, I think there's a photo of you doing like some catwalk modeling. Was that at the same time?
So that was my boss at the same time. So she was previously my boss. She was the first one to have licensing to sell Roxy. She now has like a flip-flop and everything line. So I did that for her about 4 years ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's fun. She always got me to like get my clothes off all the time. I don't know. Yeah. Seems to be a pattern in how this woman and I work together. But, you know, it was really good.
That's hilarious.
You're like, it's such a safe environment to work in. Somehow I wind up. Yeah. Wait a minute.
But it was consensual, so we're good, right? That's how it works.
So wait a second. Even in the James Bond video we did way back in the day.
Yeah, I think that might not have even been my idea. I don't know.
We did like a project where it was like we basically did a James Bond spoof, and I was
Eyes of Vorhang,
and I was like the villain, and I forget, like we were like following you and trying to hunt you and capture you. I was one of the president's
daughters.
Yeah, we were trying to capture her, and then so we were behind Clayton Heights, and we did like a scene where the camera never cut, and so she'd be walking, and she was in like schoolgirl, kind of just like proper. And
just me and a bunch of dudes hanging out in the forest while I'm taking my clothes off, and they're like, can you just slow it down a little?
Yeah, just change this, and it was just we didn't even think anything of it. It was just
I know.
It was like the music went from like "Build Me Up, Buttercup" to
"Pour Some Sugar on Me." Maybe.
Might have been Pour Some Sugar on Me.
It was something basically like that.
Yeah. Something that hits in the same way.
And then then you switched to like Britney Spears' Bad Girl.
Yeah.
So would you get in a lot of trouble for trying to pull that off today?
I don't know.
I'm for sure you would.
I kind of think you're good.
For sure. And
We'll
I
just
remember
cut this story out.
a couple years later, well, I mean, as I said, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, things have changed.
Things have changed.
Things have changed.
I was consenting. It was fine.
Yeah,
There was no
yeah,
touching.
your
it was
idea, probably.
Whatever. Probably my idea. Yeah, no, definitely. But sometime after the fact, my sister was now back at Lord Tweedsmuir, and she got like a message from one of our friends being like, we're working at one of the computers here and there's a random video of your sister stripping saved to the hard drive. And I'm like, and he's like, what is she talking about? I'm like, oh yeah, so about that.
So clearly they don't delete the hard drives.
That's
after
the
they
eyes
do.
of Vorhang.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
duh.
What grade did you get on that?
That was grade 10.
Oh, you mean like
No, we
like,
got a good
always got the
grade.
best marks.
Oh,
Really?
what grade I get, yeah.
We took it seriously.
It was very serious.
I can see that.
Serious
you
comedy.
Anytime we did a video, we got an A. So we started
Yeah.
doing videos for everything.
It was a loophole. Our English class needed a presentation. Our video class needed a presentation. Let's video our English
Somehow
presentation.
got away with it in math class? No, just
Yeah.
kidding. But like, it was, yeah.
Any chance I could cross-dress, I took it. Did-
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if my nakedness was as bad as Ty's
I was always
cross-dressing. We
doing
were
that.
like, is this a phase? Like,
How about
buddy, do
I?
you want to have a chat? Like,
How
do you
about I
wanna sit
dress
down
up
and
as
chat
a
about this?
lady for this one?
We only have one female actress, and she's doing another part. So Tyler, you're clearly going to be the girlfriend,
I
love
was a
interest in this.
geisha.
scene.
I was a geisha once, and then I was
Oh,
Alanis
also
Morissette.
would not fly this day and age.
No, not allowed. And yeah,
Also,
definitely.
shouldn't have back then, but I think
No,
we were all just
we were just studying.
terrible
it.
people.
It was a project. Yeah, it was like, oh, because we did a project on it.
Yeah.
No, someone else did a project and asked me to dress up like that.
He wasn't even in the class.
He knows he's being recorded now, so he's trying to change
Wait,
everything
I'm pretty
out.
sure
to-
that was somebody
So
else.
that was
asked me.
non-consensual.
Yeah,
That was
Okay.
not. I was actually.
Right.
I thought I was. I didn't even know I was dressing up as that. I was. They
It was that,
blindfolded me.
First year, you weren't even in the audio video class. You were in the shop class next
Oh,
door,
yeah.
and Tyler'd be
Oh,
peeking through the
yeah.
glass, wanted to join our class. All
I
his
wasn't
friends.
even in the class.
Yeah, I just kept looking through the.
He doesn't
window.
even go here.
Yeah, I had the goggles on. I'd look up and just try to make him laugh, and then sneak out.
Oh yeah,
That's wild.
Classic.
And then grade 10, I got in. Yeah.
Yeah, he got in.
Yes.
to the big leagues.
Yeah, we were like, okay, fine, you can join the team, but you have to dress in women's clothing.
Yeah.
He's like he was the one that
I
brought it up
accept.
though. I'll tell you what I'll dress. I'll tell you what I'll dress up like.
I'm pretty sure one of you were saying I had to dress up like a lady.
Yeah, pretty sure that was said in my contract that I just wrote myself.
I remember our teacher, Mr. Siemens. We called him Dad all the time.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
our
He
school
was-
dad.
Not the most hands-on teacher.
No.
He was super
I was like,
chill.
I don't even know if I knew what his face looked like. He was always like in and out. He's like, okay, good, you guys are good, everyone's good. We would just like leave the classroom to go out on our
just go
adventures.
film the stick bug
We did get in
commercial.
trouble the one time though because you guys were on the car filming.
Okay, yeah.
They were like driving on a car, but like the camera was on the hood of the car with a human
I
holding
remember
the
that.
camera. And
Yeah.
then like
How did you get that shot?
they're like, okay, no one can die on like,
Studio magic.
yeah, what do you mean?
Or
We
what
did
about
the fireworks in the forest for the Macbeth scene we made? We had to have smoke coming out of the cauldron. So we just lit firecrackers in a garbage can in the middle of the forest.
Yeah.
And then the gym teacher came looking for us, and we all had to hide in our witch's clothing in the forest with our smoldering
Okay, but that just sounds like a Friday now to me. Like
that? We did do that
just
a
me
lot.
having like a seance and out
Pretty
with
much,
fireworks.
yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
project.
So nothing's changed.
Yeah,
No.
no.
So it is though fun, and I think that's the thing. Like I know we did crazy stuff. Like we skated all the time, so we're always making skate videos. Every week I was making skate videos, and there was always an element of danger, stupidity, nudity. Those three things each
Yeah.
time. And it was funny too
You really
because
sum it up with that. I think that's
there-
going to be my next tattoo.
there was there was something ridiculous too about getting a camera out, and it's still like that today. Like when you pull a camera out, how there's a level of with my daughters, we always have fun. And like tonight, we're having a dance party to what is it? The Weeknd's new song. They just think it's absolutely awesome. But we pull out a camera and just goof off like crazy.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what we did when we were in high school skating.
Oh,
Is we just
totally.
pull out a camera. The thing was, I think at the time it seemed so rare because it was like, we had limited battery space. And it was like somebody's camera that we borrowed. So
Yeah.
it's like, we better go bigger.
Someone's
We
dad's
better go
camera.
big.
Yeah.
Right. And it was like, okay, let's go. And I remember too, like having the back of like my buddy's parents' Tercel open. And I'm hanging out the back, same thing, filming. And later it's like, how did you get that? It's like, Same thing, right? Or getting pulled on my skateboard with a rope wrapped around my waist as I'm getting shots. Like,
Not only is he like out, he's like rigged up around.
Yeah.
I still film all the time with my skateboard, all the time. I'm constantly using it to
awesome.
film
It is
shots and stuff.
awesome.
Yeah, it's like, but those are the
Do you
things
have one
that
of those like videography ones with the wheels that are like softer and
no,
make
I
no
used
sound?
I skated. I really skated. So
Yeah.
I've got a good setup for like actually skating a park. And it's like, it's meant for, I've had some big bails on it because not realizing that there's big potholes in say Vancouver and stuff that
Right.
I wasn't expecting. But I think part of it is like you learn, I always say that it's like you know, when you have structure, there's freedom. When we kind of learn your tools so well that you can break
Yeah.
the rules with them.
Oh, yeah.
And that they become an extension of you. So skateboard was an extension of who I was.
Totally.
And also when people experiment and play around and mess around, there's things that I do today when I'm telling stories, because that's my job, is I'm a professional storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
So I do things today that I learned goofing around with, like, can't remember what Buddy's dad's camera it was that we were using, but I would use it and tell stories, and so things were different. And it's amazing how those little things, like even if you think back to your like AV class, there's little things I bet you still do that you don't realize, and that actually can be a bad thing because a lot of times there's little
Faster way
habits.
to do it or
There's little
something, yeah.
habits that you do that you need to break that are like really, really tough because you just always have done it. But then there's other ways I've shot with people that I'm like if I was to watch you with the camera, like, oh, that's so cool, because everybody sees the world differently. And that was one of the things that I missed the most. I love it that my girls, actually, my little girls, I was telling you, like, they're 8 and 3.5. And it's like seeing them with a camera and what they do. It's like, this is unbelievable. Like, it inspires me because they see a world at a different level even.
Totally. And my girlfriend's a photographer, and her little he's 5 now, and she has this entire like book that she just had printed from him taking photos just
Oh,
with her
awesome.
phone.
So cool, yeah.
And it's amazing. And she's like just kind of like edited them all the same, and she's got putting it together from him so he can like see his life as he's grown up. I'm like,
That's
that is the
cool.
cutest gift.
Yeah, it's neat, isn't it?
She's also like an amazing Pinterest mom. I'm like, oh, that's really cute. I'm probably never going to do that for my children.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sounds like a lot of work. Yeah.
It's fun though. Like it's such an inspiring thing it makes me think sometimes how we sort of get to a place where, and this is where I don't want to be, is like, you know, sometimes those conversations that, like, actually a lot of times those conversations that are the most uncomfortable ones are the ones that we learn the most from.
Totally.
So it's nice to be around people that are, like we always say, that are like courageous enough to have those uncomfortable conversations. I just had one the other day. I was shooting at, where's it, Daniel Doubleday Arboretum, I think it is, here in Langley. And they have a monument that's set up. There's 215 articles of clothing that are set
on the Fraser Highway,
it's
yeah?
like,
Yeah, yeah.
seriously, I turned around as I was filming and just instantly, you know, when you get just the shivers from head to toe,
It's in your bones.
tears in my eyes. I was like, oh man. And it just made me feel nauseous. I felt so gross, but I was also so happy that it was a visual that was there. And so I brought my daughter back the next day, went for a bike ride, and we barely made it anywhere. And she just sat, and all she wanted to do was ask questions about it. And it was like, it was interesting because I was like, sweetie, when I started educating her, and then even then we started looking up stuff to be properly educated, so it wasn't just feeding garbage. Again, things that we think we know that sometimes we don't. I'd rather show
Double
there's a
check.
transparency there of like, I don't know all of it, so let's find out together. But she was like, Dad, like, it was really cool because she was explaining, like, one thing we've been talking to my daughters about a lot is that you can feel happy and sad at the same time, because feelings are meant to be felt. And it's a hard one sometimes to actually have both of those emotions going on, because it can really, it's just difficult. And she was like, she was trying to come up with the words of how she was feeling at, like, looking at these 215, like, I think they're crosses with clothes, or not crosses, but there's
It's a
something with clothes.
representation of actual
And she's like, I
children,
feel
yeah.
really, and I was like, yeah. And I just let her, like, waited and let her speak. And she's like, just gross inside, like, how to feel. And so we started talking about how, like, and she's asking why. And I was like, you know, we started talking about how we can keep talking and having these conversations, and about how difficult things can lead to immense amounts of growth, like amazing amounts of growth. But we have to have these like hard conversations sometimes. And it's amazing how just listening to like the language of an 8-year-old can really, you know, it just like it really what is it, like, it made me feel proud. First of
No
all, like
kidding.
really, really proud, but also too, to just like constantly be asking, like, not just getting into that comfortable place, which is kind of where I was saying with like, even like telling stories, is like, we can become comfortable with what we're doing. We'll just keep repeating the same thing.
Yeah.
And ultimately it's just nice to be fearless of change and constantly be evolving and growing and being inspired by others, challenged by others. That's why it's fun to like, even you guys with your friendship, I'm like, the whole time you're talking, I'm racking my brain as you're talking, thinking like, do I have a friend that I went to school with from grade 8 to 12 that I could actually do this with? And I don't know. I don't. I actually don't.
Yeah, I think it is like
We're
a
lucky.
testament. Yeah, we're really lucky in that sense. And I mean, obviously, we've gone apart, come back together, and everything. It's just, I think when you have, you know, the connect, everyone's like, oh, oh, you're always so close with Josh and Tyler. And like, there's a couple of other guys in that group. I'm like, you're not dating any of them. It's like really hard for people.
Yeah.
Especially at like 15, 16, for them to wrap their head around that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they'd come over and my mom would be like, okay, so which one are you interested
Yeah.
in? And like, it was
Neither.
yeah, I'm like, nah. And she's
we're
like, oh
friends.
man, yeah. So, you know, it was just really, I think there was just like a profound respect. And like when one of us would be like challenged with other things, it was just really easy to be there because it was
Yeah.
like such a, I think a relationship too, we're kind of taught all through every piece of literature, every movie, everything that we watch is like really based around like guy meets girl.
Yeah.
What happens, and I think so much of like the negative cultures that we have, like rape culture or like the patriarchal terrible dynamics that we have with like power,
Yeah.
they come from that where it's like, if sex is something that guys take and girls give, then at what point, like if we can't just have those, why are those relationships weird to just be
Yeah.
like equals and
Yeah.
Yeah.
supportive of each other? And it's not taking away from like the differences between, you know, genders or where on the gender spectrum you are identify as, but like being able to actually have no power struggle around gender and still be able to be like, yeah, I'm a girly girl. You guys are two total dudes, but like it's just kind of nice to be able to have someone who sees you as the person as
Yeah.
opposed to like someone they're trying to get in the pants of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the awesome
Unless he
things,
needed
like-
your pants to wear for a sketch.
Yeah.
And yeah, and in which case,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I just think Ty did definitely wear a few of my
Yeah.
dresses, but
I think that's one of the, I know for me, I feel blessed that
got
like
my
I grew
tight
up,
pants
same thing,
on.
like I was the guy with all girlfriends.
Yeah.
And I feel incredibly honored because I feel, you know, it's one of the things that I like in culture where you hear about two spirits, that it's like feelings to me are meant to be felt.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think feelings have any sort of sex to them. They're feelings.
yep.
And I think that's one of the things that like, it's just odd. Even how you're saying, it's like, you've got these moments where it's like girly girl or boy, like it's like, to be honest, I've had those feelings myself.
Yeah, of
And there's been
course.
times where I'm like, oh, I feel like this. And it's like, so does that mean? And I think that's where having those like friendships where you can just be you. And like,
Totally.
and that's one of the things that like, you know, even now talking about like what healthy love really even is, what healthy friendships truly even are.
Mm-hmm.
And that like, you know, friendships can be friendships without it having to involve any sort of sex, like in any way.
Absolutely.
And they can actually just be a healthy friendship. But it is interesting how our world is set up where it's like, oh, if you're hanging out as a girl amongst guys, well, who are you like interested in? It's like actually no one. And I remember being called gay all the time because I was around girls a lot. And they're like, who, you know, you're not going to go out with her? I was like, no, like, what are you, gay?
It's like, I'm
And I was
sorry,
like-
I know so many men and I only have one fiance. Like,
Yeah.
am I supposed to like every single man I meet? Like, is that a
Right?
thing?
Yeah.
It's just interesting that we like, and I'm so thankful and so glad that every day our world is making, even if it's a small step, I'm totally cool with making small steps because I think that
Yeah.
like, you know, slow is steady and steady is fast. And I think that being able to encourage each other to feel what you're feeling, you wake up one day, feel a certain way, that's fine. You don't even need excuses.
Yeah.
You don't need to explain it to me. You can just be you. And it's
No,
one like,
you made a really interesting point earlier about, you know, you said when you were with your daughter and you're like, if there's something that I don't know, I'm not just going to be like, oh, here's a little like reasonable explanation I can think of
Yeah.
off the top of my head. You go and do that research. And I think that's what allyship's about. And I think cancel culture has really done a terrible thing to make people who were on the more like privileged side of whatever the situation is, and you know, wherever the intersectionality it is, it's like, well, I'm this and I'm this, or I'm this and this, and I'm at the intersection of such and such. It doesn't really matter because we have to allow allies to like do the work and like make mistakes and
grow.
ask questions and
Like,
grow.
just
And
because
like,
you were something 20 years ago doesn't mean you should be that same thing
just
today.
because you dressed as a geisha one
doesn't mean that I'm
time,
always doing it.
you're canceled now.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I just love that culture so much.
I just really wanted to be a woman.
Yeah,
It's
but
honestly all
it's,
it is.
the interesting thing is that like what we don't do though is we're so quick to judge, and it's something that I hate that I've even done in my own life is like quick to judge when I would never want people to. I'm hoping I am not the same guy that I was a year ago, and I'm hoping next year I will not be the same guy as I am now. Like
Yeah.
I want to be evolving and to be challenged and to grow.
And exactly, it's challenge. I think judgment comes from a place of like sheer. There's almost like a fear that the way that you see the world, and like that's going to shake. And then you're like, what
Yeah.
if I don't know how
Yeah.
to take the next path? So it is challenging when you're like, oh, that's not the norm. Like that's, and again, we're all products of our environment. Like you think like the Deep South, why they're reacting certain ways to certain things, and like
Yeah.
no matter what side of that you're on, like there's so much history and hatred and anger in those places. and pain. Like really, it all comes down to like the amount of fear and pain that they feel on both sides and everywhere in the middle. But you have, I think as soon as you start kind of, again, back to the traveling thing, as soon as you start reading other stories, seeing the other side, you can still have an opinion and, definitely relate to something more than something else. But I think we're at a really important point in culture or in just society in general where like we have access to hear the other person's side of stories. We're actually seeing funding going towards, female creators, Black creators, Indigenous creators. We actually are seeing these stories that aren't just about like, oh, of course he's going to end up with like the blonde chick at the end of this movie because, she used to wear glasses, but now she's hot.
Now she's all that.
I know. Did you see that there's a new He's All That?
I heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely didn't watch it, but I did watch like my favorite drag video review guys that did
talk
it.
about
It was, yeah.
It's crazy
It's
how
bad.
much. I heard mixed reviews.
Mixed reviews. No, I can't. Okay.
Bad reviews, I guess.
Reviews.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
They're
bad.
his own reviews.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
I've watched it a
He
few
loved
times.
it actually.
Yeah. The positive was for me. Yeah. Oh.
He's like there was one guy that voted yes. I'm like,
He was all that.
yeah.
It's crazy how much gets like programmed into you though, growing up, like just from like the movies you watch, from like how your parents are, and like I know when me and Annie were getting married, like I don't know why it was so important to me for her to have my last name.
Yeah.
But like when it came to talking about that, like I couldn't even really say like, oh, I don't know why exactly. And it's not like I want to put ownership over you. I just feel proud, I guess, that
Because we wanted to be together.
we're together.
Right.
We're the same name.
Yeah.
We're a team. And like it fills me with pride that we've got the same one and that you were
Yes,
with it.
internalized misogyny.
Yeah, right?
No, but we don't.
You are mine.
Right, and I'm like, I'm super feminist, and like I'm taking Alex's last name because
It's a cool
it's
last
my
name.
choice. Well, it's Vassos too.
It's a
now.
cool
It's
last
my
name.
cool last name. But no, I'm also was like, feminism is that you get to choose what that is. Like, it means if you don't want to, don't do it. If you do want to, like,
Yeah.
go for it.
Just
You
do
want to
your
be a
thing.
stay-at-home mom? Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Live your
Yeah.
life. That's way harder than my job. Who are you kidding?
Right? Yeah.
Way
Agree
harder.
with you there 100%. My daughter's
Yeah.
actually been asking a lot about changing her last name, and I think it's phenomenal. 8 years old, and she's like, so I'm just kind of curious why, like, I don't have mom's last name as well. And it's interesting because I really don't care. I think she can be whatever she wants. She can change her name a million times. It's
Totally.
not, it does not matter to me at all. And I think I was going to go back to what you were saying earlier, that like, it's interesting how we, like, it's one of the things that like, so I mean, you've heard me talk about it tons. Like, I absolutely really do not care about what people do. I just don't. But I deeply care about who people are. And I absolutely love to hear people's stories and to find out who they are. And I think it's just like, to me, just fascinates me. And it also just, I think like, I really do enjoy when people are brave and courageous enough to be transparent and empathetic and authentic with somebody. Like, and even if it feels gross and looks and sounds gross sometimes, but it's real. Like, they're really being themselves. And then it's a challenge when somebody says, yeah, I'm growing and I'm changing. Like, we're joking around about like, dressing up like a geisha and this and that stuff. And if you said, oh yeah, I'm not that person anymore, but then you walk out the door and you're still doing it.
Right. Actions.
And that's actually the one thing that I do see a lot is who we surround ourselves with.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like, and so it's interesting, like, I've been having these conversations with my wife quite a bit, that it's like, we don't pick our family, but we pick our friends. And it's like, but a lot of times, people have this like, well, it's family.
Right.
And
No,
how it's
no,
like,
no, no.
okay, hang on a second, because I completely disagree with everything that you're saying, but I sort of feel, and so now though, there's like a whole history and a past of growing up with a level of like people pleasing, there's
Generational trauma
so
is
much
real,
generational
yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then surrounding yourself with relationships that continually keep sucking that out of you. And then all it does is it halts your growth. So then everything that we say that we are, or we want to be, we've got all this stuff, which is why I just find it so fascinating and so inspiring when I get to meet people that are not choosing the easy way in life.
Yeah.
I remember people used to tell me, like, when I would do like crazy rails on my skateboard or whatever it may be, and like, you're so brave. I think I've told you that before. And I was like, man, like, that's not brave. Like, going to counseling and not
Yeah.
knowing what might be uncovered and pulling those layers back and being like, that is
So much easier to just be like, la, la,
terrifying.
la, la, la. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, but like, and that's why, but at the same time, like, all of a sudden you come out of there and there's life to, like, I don't want to just survive. I want to live.
Yeah.
And so also too, it's amazing how, we talked about earlier, I don't know if we were even recording at the time, but we were talking about how, going on walks is fantastic. And also you get to do that same walk with, say, a puppy. And it gets this whole new life to it. And then it was the same thing with my daughters. It was like something we'd done a million times, all of a sudden doing with them, found this new incredible life. And it also made me realize, like, holy shit, I have these two absolutely pure, beautiful lives that I don't want to taint at all with any of my shit in any way. And now there's a pressure that, like, again, going back to like, I'm not that person. It's like, oh, we'll see how you, let's see you live it out then. And it's like, oh man, like there's a lot of pressure, but I do enjoy it because it makes me realize that it brought to light a lot of areas where I was making a lot of excuses up and how I'd be like, oh, they're not really that bad of a person. It's like, actually, and I just read this quote, I think it's by Adam Grant or whatever, but it was kind of like somebody that I just absolutely adore him. And it was something along the lines of, it's like, people were assholes before the pandemic, but it's kind of just shone a light on all the real, like that they really are assholes. And it's like, that's a good point. Like, I think sometimes it's like, just stop making excuses and allow the relationships to just say what they're saying. And sometimes you'll step back and be like, okay, I'm not getting treated, or these people are not the type of people that I want to surround myself with, because it is halting they're taking up too much of my heart, my mind, my soul, my brain calories. They're taking it all, and I'm not able to grow properly.
Well, I think that's one area where, like, you get to be really, when you get to that point in your life where you're really conscious about who you're spending time with. It's not like you're in high school and it's like you're sitting next to so-and-so because that's where the teacher put you. And
our last names are very similar.
Your last names are McAuley and McLaughlin. Yeah. So,
that's awesome.
So you're all of a sudden like not having to, you're going out and you're making choices, and like, yes, there are people you have to be around, whether it's the people you work with or whatever. But again, you really don't. Like, you can definitely change things at any point in your life. If you don't like how things are going, it's not like, well, I chose to be a teacher. It's like, do something else then.
Do you remember our teacher from school, Mr. Weiss, how many jobs he had?
Oh, he's still one of my favorite people.
He's cool.
So for Matt, who didn't know him, this is the guy that developed the program that brings every high school to the P&E every year so they can study physics, air quotes.
Okay, wait, you're missing the best part, though. He was also the guy who did the fact-checking for whether physics would actually work on MacGyver.
Yeah.
He was a truck driver. He taught kids.
So he's a physicist.
But he really did
make
make sure, like for the actual show, he did it?
Yeah.
He was the
like
consultant where they were like, if he had a paperclip and a piece of bubble gum, could he do
that.
this thing?
And
he'd be like, well, yeah, but you'd need to give him something that was spring-loaded, so maybe make him find a pen or whatever. Like, it'd be like, this would be the situation.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, he was so rad.
Okay, so he's going to need to blow this up. He's got a knife.
Yeah, exactly.
He can do it.
He can do it.
Oh, that's really cool.
So he's the one who first for me was like, what do you mean? It wasn't just when you go to school, you see your teacher, you just think when you're a kid, oh, they were a teacher. That's all they've ever been. That's all they're ever going to be. He's like, no, I'm teaching high school kids because I can bother them more than the college kids. And I can,
And he really enjoyed what he was
that.
doing. And like, again, he was just the kind of teacher who like, him or Mr. Hall, like there was these amazing educators, like they went beyond just like showing up, having a class plan.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm always on like the hunt for the next thing that's going to get me as excited as like someone who's in that position. But when you're at this point in your life where you can actually choose who you're spending your time with, and you all of a sudden kind of like take inventory, and I know we've all been there where it's like, I love this person, but like, it is draining. And trust me, all relationships take effort and work. I'm not saying like something's taking from you. Like that's not what I'm saying, but it just comes to a point in your life where like, I want to align myself with a job that aligns with me, with a partner that aligns with me. I'm going to be really clear with my word. And if, my dad or Alex's dad says something that's outdated, that I'm like, you can't say that. I will speak up, because it's the same way I feel about like locker room talk. Okay, it's just boys being boys. But at some point, the ones that are like 90% of the guys don't say stuff like that. And yet they sit quiet. Well, the 10% do. And it's like, that's what perpetuates this. So I do think it's really important that if I'm feeling like, ugh, in my gut, I'm like, Dad, I won't be around you when you say words like that or whatever it is. And yeah, I think it's really cool to get to that point in your life where you can be really calculated about who you're with, what media you consume, what you watch, who's like, what you're reading and everything. I think it's
I agree. I know
really
that like
space.
even sitting there with my daughter at, as we were talking the other day at that Daniel Day Arboretum, she's like, I feel really gross about this, Dad. Like, I don't want this to ever happen again. And she's like, will this ever happen again? Is that as long as we keep talking about it, it's not going to happen. And it's interesting how some people want to just not talk about it. And she asked that, well, what happens if people don't want to talk about it? I was like, well, obviously, like you might have to take a little bit of a step back and go, I wonder why they don't want to talk about it. And it's so neat to see this curious mind because I agree that there's lots of times that like we just standing around. I had somebody the other day, like I was shooting and they came up to me and said, hey, like you want to hear a joke? And it's just really random.
You know that's never going to be a good one.
Yeah.
And it was like, and they're like,
it's set the stage a little more for me. Like,
Yeah.
were you in a back alley?
No, I was shooting at a big,
Hey, man,
like,
I got all
I was
these
shooting at a
jokes.
big opening of something. So there was like this big thing, and then,
Okay.
and I think I was just kind of standing off to the side because I was, doing nothing.
Yeah.
And so this person comes up to me and it's like, oh yeah, I was just chatting and stuff, and amongst the conversation, so I just skipped all that part when I said it the first time. But they're like, oh, I'll tell you this joke. It's a very like, what was the words they said? I was like, yeah, I don't want to hear it. And they're like, come on, you don't want to hear it. And everybody else is like, I'll hear it. I'm like, I don't want to hear it, to be honest. Like I said, honestly, I kind of want to keep my soul clean. So, and they kind of looked at me like, when I was like, well, really, in reality, it's interesting because then they all thought I was odd for saying it. But if we don't, like, I love that you said that, because if we don't start saying things like that, it's just, again, one of those things that it's our actions, right? Like when we say like, oh, I do really believe in equality. And I believe in like, this and this and this. And I believe in that. And I believe in that. It's like, but I'm going to like totally tell some pretty disgusting jokes. And I'm going to be okay with locker rooms. See, even for me, like that's one of the areas I grew up in, the locker rooms. And I remember just being like head down and just being like, this is all bullshit. Cause I know all of your girlfriends and this is none of what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
But I remember being so freaking insecure that I didn't say anything. And I wish now, like that's one of the things now, like they talk about, do you want to go back to, I've heard people say, oh, I wish I could go back. I'm like, oh, I don't at all. I just wish I had the mind I have now back then.
But that's what was cultivating the mind you have now.
Exactly.
Because that visceral reaction that as teenagers and in our early 20s, we were like, oh, quiet little voice that means I might lose this. And we are actually like creatures who will not survive on our own. We're way smarter than a saber-toothed tiger, but like we needed a group of us to like figure it all out. And like that's how our entire, like that's how we survived this long and this well in quotes. But it's like we never wanted to be pushed away from the pack, right?
Yeah.
So this is a really hardwired thing in us that I just try and have these conversations with like my dance students as much as possible about that stuff. And like, if one of the girls is like, oh, I hate that girl, she's such a whatever. And I'm like, oh, who? I remember like literally having this conversation. She's like, yeah, but she was having sex with 3 guys or whatever. And I'm like, hey, let's have a conversation about how we don't call each other that because, and it's like the music came off and she was very clearly upset because this girl was willing to do things and was ready to at 16 and she was not. And this boy chose this girl who was over her. And I'm like, I've been in high school. I get how that feels because you're not there, which is great. Thank you for respecting yourself. But like, we don't do that. Like, and it's just this whole conversation of like asking, getting everyone to kind of contribute their thoughts and feelings on it. And yeah, it's really challenging because like 2 of the girls in the class are like, well, I am having sex. And they're like, so what do you think about me? And then it's like this whole thing. And yeah, so it's really interesting.
Facilitating those conversations. I think it's awesome you're doing that because I know that, one of the things that's been fascinating that a 3.5-year-old asks all day is why.
Why?
And
Why?
one of the cool things, even in that
Why?
situation, you've got, 2 girls that are completely different. You don't know what their home lives are like. You don't know who they are. Some are, we all knew where we had a friend that was just like the wisest 16-year-old you ever met. And then I know people that are the stupidest 60-year-olds you've ever met.
Yep.
And I think that asking those questions, like I know something just came up in a conversation at a shoot where it was this kind of a similar situation as what you're just talking about. And I remember just thinking like, I was like, well, why? Like, why does it make you feel this way? And a person's just kind of like, why would this girl lash out to that other girl that way? Like, why? And just think about it. Don't give me a response right away. You can think about it. You can even go home and talk about it next week if you want, but like, just think about the why. And then let's have that conversation. It would be even amazing if we could like even involve the girl that you're judging and bring her in. So you're able to have, because honestly, it's amazing what we can teach each other. Because I think that's the element of one being ready and one not. Maybe they actually can learn from both so that their lives are better and they grow versus it's one against the other.
Totally.
And it blows.
And like that's what I find it challenging when you're teaching kids this age because it's like I'm sex positive, which means if you never ever want to have sex in your entire life, you don't have to. But like if you want to go for it, like go for it. Like I would have do your thing. And it's challenging because I, as like their dance educator, it's not, we don't sit down and have sex ed classes, but we definitely do. These conversations come up. They're constantly, they're 16-year-old girls that I spend 5 hours with 2 nights a week. Like it comes up.
Yeah.
But it's really challenging to just be like, whoa, hold up. We just respect regardless of their choice.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, she's only doing it to get attention. I'm like, that sounds like she's on a journey that like, that sucks for her, but she'll get there. So like, that's her journey as well. Like a lot of people do stuff for the wrong reasons. Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
Look at my 15 to 25. Like I did a lot of stuff that I was like, oh, those were some good stories. But
Well,
like,
maybe that's the only safe place too that these like girls feel that they can
Yeah.
actually show.
Yeah.
Because
Maybe-
you're not their parent.
Well,
you're
yeah.
not a teacher in school. You're an
Yeah.
authority figure to them, but
Yeah.
you're someone who they can relate to, especially in that environment.
Well, how
I've
would-
kind of fooled them.
Yeah.
They think I'm a bit cool still. So I'm
awesome.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. Although they did find out my real age recently, and they were shocked and appalled.
Oh,
Yeah. Most of them are born after we graduated, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Oh, when I
awesome.
check IDs
So-
at
I
the
love
restaurant now, it's like when they're born past the year 2000. I'm like, oh no, and you're allowed to drink.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
shocking.
I think it's awesome. I think that's so cool
Yeah.
that like, you know, again, having an opportunity to facilitate those conversations, and even that they feel safe around you to have that is a huge
That is
testament to you as well.
Yeah.
Because I think that, again, I even know there's times where I'll come home and I'll be just exhausted from a shoot because I feel like I was more of a counselor than I was actually a storyteller
Oh,
or
yeah.
videographer, photographer, content creator, like consultant. Like there's many times where it is a level of, especially when, as you would know, like working with businesses, that it's like, you know, more than ever, we are desperate as a culture for transparency, authenticity, and empathy. We are just desperate for it. And we want to get to know who we're going to give our money to.
Absolutely.
And I think that we deserve it, and we want, and ultimately as well, we want to support people. We want to be able to, like, to me, I would send my daughter to that class because it's so cool to know, hey, there's an amazing teacher who has an open heart. And so if, like, I give the example of, like, I taught swimming lessons and stuff and did that, but my daughter wanted to learn swimming lessons, and I knew that if I did it, I'm her dad. If she's going to go, she knows I'm probably going to reach my hand out and grab her. But as a swimming instructor, she's like, okay, I don't really know this guy, but I respect him and he's amazing as an instructor, but I need to, like, there was just a whole different level of it. And she's opened up and asked questions in this, and I'm like, got tears in my eyes, so proud. Like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Like, just watching her, because it isn't me.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool because I think we need other people to be
Oh,
able to
yeah.
also come from a different perspective, to have those conversations that make you go like, oh, I've never thought that way before. Like maybe that other girl that even was judging was like, all she's ever heard at home is we judge people like this.
Yeah.
Like, these people here are going to hell, you're not, so judge them like
Totally.
crazy. It's like,
Yeah.
and she needs to hear that voice so that she's able to come up and question herself and go, I don't feel comfortable now at home having this conversation because I think that this here,
100%.
I love it. I think that's fantastic. And I
Yeah.
think that we need to, with businesses, it's one of the things that I can't encourage businesses enough, is to focus a lot more on being who you are, sharing who you are. It also means that you don't have to lie in any of your marketing. And so, and
Yeah, it makes things a lot easier.
makes
We're
things-
like, what did we say last time?
that's
Yeah.
the challenge that people don't understand, is when you've wanted to portray your business in a certain way, and so you've built up this reputation of what you think. People are, first of all, not stupid, so they don't
Yeah.
fall for it. It's amazing how it's like when you're able to, you have to then remember what, like exactly what you said. So what did we say last time? Because we need to remember that for each, oh crap, where do we say it and who do we say it to? And it becomes so confusing. It's like, do you want to just take all the pressure off? Just be you.
Yeah. I'm
Right.
really lucky. The majority of who I work with in like are small to medium sized businesses. So they're mostly willing to put their own
Yeah.
faces forward. And if not,
Yeah.
with a little bit of coaxing along from me, I'm like, you're great at what you're doing. Like, why we just need to get this out there, because there is a huge push. Everyone wants to support small business.
Yeah.
But it's for me, I'm always just like, get out there, be as authentic as possible. Because I'm like, I'm sitting in here in a meeting with you and you're just like so passionate and so
Right.
knowledgeable and so amazing. Like, let's tell
love
that
it.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. And that's the cool thing is you get to, sorry, cut you off, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say it's been super cool watching you grow Broadworld.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's definitely like evolved over the years. It was like
How many years now? It's been a bit.
I started it as like a blog when I was living in Ghana in 2012, and then it
remember
was
that.
like just like me traveling around and like a lot of booty shots on Instagram. And now, I'm just like an old married lady. So it's evolved a lot. And then the business started 3 years ago. So I branched off on my own 3 years ago and started the consultancy. And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's really fun.
I think it's so cool that you, again, that you are encouraging people to do that, because it's one of those things that I tell people, like it's, when you think about having 1 million fake likes, or you've got 100 really genuine, engaged, true community members, what would you rather have? And it's like, well, if you're going back to like what we were talking about of being young and in high school, where it's all about being cool, like maybe you might want the 1 million likes just to boost your own ego up. But in reality, we're talking about businesses, like families, like, and employees and people. And it's like, those 100 committed community, like engaged members will actually support you, and they'll support you for a very long time. And we know this. And it's like, and so when you have the opportunity to be yourself, it's amazing when someone connects with you, whether it be through a DM and they're talking to you and you get to be who you are. or they see you in a video and you get to be who you are.
Yeah.
And then they see any sort of marketing material and they get to know who you are. And then they happen to see you buying something at the grocery store and they're like, oh my goodness, you're the exact same person.
Right.
And all it does is elevate your brand's trust.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing is that you're right. We all want to support those people. It's just amazing how hard it is for people to, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, like past traumas and the things and the metrics that are completely wrong that we hold as what our success is.
Totally.
I always use the example that I knew somebody who, like his metric for success was when he was like, I don't know if he was 50 or 55, he was going to like, I want to have a big house and, a sports car and blah. Well, then he hits that age and he has those things. And all of a sudden he has like,
oh wait, where's my happy
yeah,
ever
it's
after?
the happiness. The happiness isn't there. I'm like, so you
exactly.
just spent a huge chunk of your life pursuing this, what you consider to be happiness, which was the wrong metric because there was no meaning, there was no purpose,
Yeah.
there was no fulfillment.
Yeah.
It was just objects. But he wanted to have this level of, look at what I've done. And in reality, though, it's just none of us have the same story. None of us have the same. When I talk to my girls about what they want to be when they grow up, it's happy. But not just happy from like a giggly happy, like to have true meaning and purpose and fulfillment in life.
One of my girlfriends has just started saying to her kids, what do you want to do? And it just changing that. Like, I want to be happy, but being is a state where it's like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you enjoy doing? Remember when you were a kid, you'd fill up your weekends with like the stuff you actually cared about and like that kind of stuff. And there's a way, like, especially now we have so much opportunity. Like, Josh, if we would have picked a great, like a job back in like grade 11, those jobs don't even exist anymore. Like all the ones like, what are we all doing for work? Like it didn't exist back then or not in the way it does now. So I'm always just like, just keep doing stuff and moving forward and like doing things that you actually really enjoy to do. And that will change how you like are being in the world.
It's true. Yeah, no, it's true. It's definitely, I know my girls every day we wake up and it's like, all right, what are you going to practice today? And it's like bravery, courageousness, curiosity, and we'll have fun. And that's every day. Every single day they review. And that was from Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
And it was just like the coolest thing to like hear his story about how he got there and why you're right, like pursuing things and trying things. Like I've always said that I've been fearful in my life that I'm not going to have enough time in my life to do all things that I absolutely would love to try.
Yeah.
And there's a level of, it's cool to surround yourself too, like with hearing your story and you guys as well, like that. It's just like, yeah, let's give it a go. Right. Like you want to try that. Okay. Like it's inspiring to be around that. And I think that, again, also one of the things that like I've been really working hard in the last few years of my life too is just like I've always been scared of like unconscious bias and like making sure that I'm not just surrounding. Like the other day I was like, it'd be like this. It's like, yes, I agree with you. It's like, oh no, have I purposely chosen these people in my life to just support? Like I'm so aware of that. And like, even like when we were talking about, something else came up earlier and I was thinking, even where we seek our knowledge and where we seek and what we consider as our forms of challenging us and making us feel gross. It's like, it's one of the things that like taking the time to even look at where you're getting information from, who you're listening to. I mean, we all have those friends that just seem to spout off information that you're like,
nope.
This is
strong nope.
This is a strong no.
Yeah,
like,
I've learned a lot in the last 18 months. I'm like, wow, you're a doctor now. Okay, cool. That's awesome. I'm really glad.
I know. That's
really glad.
it's really, a little eye-opening for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, before I was on my own, I worked for a tech company called Press Reader that brings in like 7,000 publications from around the world, and like we were always trying to like talk about how media is like there's no budgets, how it's all syndicated, and how like where does real journalism come from, and like that's a whole other like can of worms. But media nowadays is just so quick that it's like it used to be a 24-hour cycle. It's not anymore. It's literally like that just happened maximum. Like something happens, someone tweets it, and all of a sudden, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that like we as a society need to fix somehow. But we usually are pretty good at that. I'm cautiously optimistic. We're pretty like evolutionary, like resilient species.
Well, I wonder if we are actually, but I wonder if we could just keep like, the same amount going, but it's like when the feeds are filled with more of what we're talking about, like more honesty and more transparency and more authenticity, like when our feeds are filled with it, then when we choose to pick up our tool, whatever that may to engage with it, we're getting a more honest view of the world, a more positive view, a more realistic, true view. I think that what it is we live in a culture where it's like headlines. It's hilarious when you have those friends again. We all know who they are. But they're like, oh, you
Read the
didn't read the
headline.
news. You actually just read the headline,
Yeah.
and the story kept going, and it had nothing to do with
Yeah,
that.
no.
But it is like, and so, you know, what we tend to do is we have like a lot of opportunities where people then just fit their narrative to fit their lifestyle. So they'll read the headlines that they want. It
Yeah.
fits whatever decision they want because they want to do their own thing.
Totally.
And then away they go.
Yeah.
But I think that like there are really good people, and I think that it's just unfortunate that we don't hear enough of that in, you know,
And it's
in-
really hard for like if someone it becomes a personality online and they have an opinion, you know, that's going to come to the surface because that's just how every algorithm on every single platform, including Google, works. Period. So that's just how it is. But when we have like actual journalists who are doing like hard hitting journalism and there's no budgets for that, and
That's crazy.
no one really cares to read the full form article anymore, and like, how do we get that actual? And then people always judge that too. It's like you literally heard it from the top virologist at X, Y, and Z, yet we're going to question that. Or like, you know, it's that kind of stuff that I'm just like, wait a second, at what point in time did we all think we had every job in the world? Like, that's not how society works.
Yeah.
Like, my dentist, I don't go in and be like, hey, what do you, like, I don't know.
What brand is that drill? I really need to
Right,
know.
and then I'm going to Google it. Like, I'm not walking down the street watching a guy fix a manhole and being like, excuse me, I'm not sure if you're spending my tax dollars and making sure that
Yeah.
this sidewalk looks like this. I didn't agree to my sidewalk looking like this.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. I don't have time for all of that.
Yeah.
I just want to make really cool marketing stuff.
Yeah. I want to help
awesome.
people.
Exactly. I just want to make really pretty posts on social media.
It's interesting because I've actually thought that, like I spend time, like my wife and I spend time seeking out great, like I love great journalism and I love reading stories that like make me feel like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening. Because we talked earlier about just being blessed. Like, I think that is one of the things, the more, can't remember who said this, but it's like the more stories that we can consume of others, like real true stories, it's like the more knowledge and wisdom you will receive. And it's another form of education. Like it is just,
Well, think about like the cultures that's how they told the stories before we had print.
Yeah,
It was
that's
the stories that were most important to all of us had to be told to generation after
Yeah.
generation because
Totally.
you were learning so much from
Yeah.
what actually happened.
So that's there's a podcast I've been listening to. I actually just finished the whole thing, and it's phenomenal. It's two Indigenous women, and it's the true, like I think it's about the history of like Canada, the real history of Canada.
That's cool.
And it is
really cool.
I bawled my way through it, and I ended up becoming that annoying husband to my, like I was this super annoying partner to my wife. As I came,
Or they're
I was
just getting like your cold notes
I would
version.
call her. I pause it and call her, sweetie, you're not going to believe this is what I do. Like what just happened? She's like, I know. Okay. And then I go back to listening and you're not going to believe what I like, and just
Yeah.
tears streaming down my face. And it was so hard to listen to. And at the same time, I felt so honored. And one of the things that they did was when they started the podcast, they would share about Indigenous culture and how much their history has been passed. And there was a reason why it was passed on verbally. And a big, big part of it was listening. Because listening is something that I think that is something that is absolutely beautiful in their culture that we have. My wife is phenomenal at it and has taught me. That's why I believe that my success that I've found in what I do is from her. She's taught me so much about true listening. And I think that Indigenous culture, and like she actually is really blessed too. Her father did a lot of work with and still does a lot of work with Indigenous culture. And I think that was amazing because it taught a lot to her as well about listening, but really listening. So listening to what's being said, to what the body language is saying, to what's not being said, to what even the air feels like in the room, to what the wind is doing, to what the sky is doing, to what the animals, like just listening goes beyond listening.
Yeah. And I think we've all kind of like lost touch with that. And that's why you can see like every time I open Instagram, it's like trying to sell me a mindfulness course because it's so true. We've all become out of touch with just literally sitting. What is like even your thighs feel against the chair? Like we're not always present. We're always like up here vibrating in like some space in our head of like, hey, I gotta get this done. I gotta do that. And I've got to do the thing. And I've got to pick up the dog. And it's like, there's such this, but it's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's all fabricated because it's easier to sort of vibrate like that than acknowledge some of the other stuff that we're pushing down and pushing away. So I think being able to listen and really delve into that mindfulness moment and not just like audibly listening, but like really truly
I agree.
taking things in.
Yeah. And that got me thinking when I was listening to that as well, that, we pay for Netflix and Netflix has no like restrictions for content. It lets people just create whatever they want. And then I get to choose what I want to see. Same thing with Disney Plus and Amazon Prime and Hulu.
And then based on those patterns, it shows you more things that are the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it got me thinking, I was like, why isn't there like Journalism Plus where
Right? Yeah, that's a good idea.
journal
All around the world, you could see everyone's
but
perspectives.
it's unfiltered. They get
Yeah.
to do what they want and they get to write what they've done. And we pay for that subscription because it's something that like I'll pay for truth.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll pay for like it's unbelievable because I've been there. Like I've done tons of work with the government and I've been there to see things where it's like, I'd see later what happened. I was like, that actually did not happen. I was there.
Yeah.
And that story, like the photo or the video is not telling the truth of what was there. And it's unfortunate because we then believe that. And then we make decisions off that. And even worse, we will then go out for a coffee or a drink with people and then
regurgitate it
in a disgustingly impure way and pass it on. And then we will make decisions for not only our generation, but the next generations based off the bullshit that just happened. And it's like, that's one small little tiny thing amongst, and then you have to be like you said.
However, imagine back in the day when it literally came to you in like one newspaper one time and you're living in a small town.
Somebody else had to read it to you?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Definitely. So I do think like we also have this like crazy fear at the moment because we see every little thing that goes on. Like, imagine if you were living in Canada during World War II. Obviously, everything that was going on.
Oh, so yeah, I was watching a cartoon with Jaden about this where it's Avatar, The Legend of Korra. I don't know if you guys know that story or not, but basically they segregate people who have the superpower of bending the elements and the people who don't. And at one point, the police start rounding up innocent people. And it was the first time I saw my son be like, no, but the police are always good. Why are they doing something to this population? And it was one of those like,
oh, wow.
That's a complicated topic because he loves being a policeman. He loves the topic of being good and being just. But when you look into it, in the past, especially World War II, Japanese internment camps, like
totally,
they were putting people into these camps. It's a very similar.
Wherever there's humans involved, there's going to be both sides. Guys, we've all seen Star Wars. So you got to figure out which side you're on. Okay.
Yeah.
So as soon as there's humans involved, it's going to be, and it's so funny because like imagine you grew up in Canada during World War II, and all you had access to was like, okay, I know we had some like troops shipped out. Hopefully, no one in your family, and then it's like you just get a paper every day updating you.
Yeah.
You hear it on the radio.
Especially when they feed you
like
fear.
And it's wild. Like to be like sitting there. It's not like every day that we can be like, well, that's a crock of shit. Or like that's, I'm actually seeing someone tweet what's going on live, whether it's an explosion in Lebanon or whatever. You're seeing every single thing. That's taxing on us as humans. Like we can't take on that much empathy. Like, it's pretty crazy. So,
well, fear leads to hate. Hate leads to anger, and anger leads to the dark side.
We knew it was coming. I mean, we knew it was coming.
I was waiting patiently.
I know. I was like, here it is.
His one written down note, he's like, oh, please, somebody let me allow me to use this.
Just it up for him. Right out of the
Wipes
park.
the notes off his hand.
Yeah, totally.
You mentioned fear.
So let's go back to what you're talking about earlier.
Quickly loop back to that one reference about fear.
No, it is true. There's definitely so much. My wife and I just talked about that, about how like what would it feel like to even just go on a holiday and not take a device with that, just because we absolutely always love capturing. I've always done it. I've always loved telling stories, even when we're and it's interesting because for years people would tell like both of us to put down the camera so you can really take this in. And so I did a bunch of research on it to find that there's actually a select group of like photographers and videographers that can actually take in a moment as it's happening as purely with the camera in front of them as they can without a camera. And I've always felt that, but I always felt this weird feeling like, well, maybe I am missing out because you've been telling me that I need to put it down. But I legit can take something in. And so you're right. Like that's why many times, even as I'm working with clients, I'm absolutely bawling as they're sharing their story because I'm taking it. And I'm realizing that, the more that I've been learning about empathy as well and the different types of empathy, that it's like, they don't need me to, what's the saying? It's like, you don't need to be drowning yourself to save somebody from drowning.
Right.
So turn on a different part of the empathy.
Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting.
And so that's
I'm an empath through and through. I've had to do a lot of work around that.
No, and I do have to say, even today, like today was like a real struggle for me. Like it's like I have a crazy amount of like, as we all do, we're all busy, but a crazy amount of projects that are like due now. And really, in reality, it's like my mind has been actually thinking like, should I just give up on sleep for the next little while and just go through
Get it done.
But then I'm like, so the people that I care about the most, we were just talking about this earlier before we went live. It's like,
they'll get the worst of you.
Yeah. They're going to get the burned out, like depleted battery version. And then it's like, now I'm going to be to my wife, I'm not even going to be the friend that I want to be to her. And then to my girls, the dad. And
zombie dad.
I mean, like, and it's like, and then and even worse than that, and this guts me and keeps me up at night, is like, so what am I teaching them? Right? Like, what am I teaching them through my actions of like, okay, here we go. So this person who says that this is the most important thing, and now it's pressuring me to do it. And like, it's just my mind goes like,
well, anyways, that's something
my mind is racing still.
Yeah. I'm like, this poor guy, let's get him a Valium over here. No, but I've had this conversation. It's kind of the curse of like being self-employed, and Annie and I have had it a few times, is like, there's the reason you get into having your own business is like, I want to like be in charge of everything and be able to like see all of the fruits of my labor. And then also like just being passionate about like seeing it come together. So there's like the control freak side of you and then the like part of you that just really loves what you do. But it gets to that point. Like I had to make the big decision this year to hire someone full time, which I was like, whew, I want someone who can be like a me. I want to train them to do what I do, but like can actually do it like off the side of me. And then it's like, oh, okay, that's a huge amount of money to be investing in stuff. But I started just absolutely burning out. And like I was showing up to teach dance, a depleted version of myself. Alex would be like, hey, I haven't seen you all week. And it's just like, you have to at some point have that like, what are your boundaries? And like, what's the difference between like, and I do think there's a little bit of push and shove when it comes to this because it does take a few weeks sometimes of like really buckling down to like not to deserve, but like to really earn that stuff and set yourself up for success. Cause I know when I'm behind, like if I don't take my Sunday afternoons and like make them be like, okay, get organized for the week, I am a terrible version of myself during the week. So overworking can sometimes actually make me a better person. But then I'm like, okay, well, I'm taking 2 weeks and like actually unplugging and actually being present with Alex and all that kind of stuff.
So you'll have something in the back of your mind the whole time, right?
Exactly. And then you're not present anyways. And then I'm like, I should have just done that thing. And then
I feel bad for Annie sometimes too, because like I'll work full time during the day and then I've got all my other stuff where I'll need to stay up and do that. So we hang out like in the evening and then she'll fall asleep and I'll kind of stay up and go work on my stuff. But then sometimes it makes her feel like I'm just waiting for her to fall asleep.
Right.
When sometimes I kind of am because I've got a lot of stuff to do.
Well,
right?
you're poking her too. Like, yeah, she's out. Good, I can go.
Yeah, is she? Yeah, shake the bed.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you get out of bed and you hear the squeak and then you look back.
No. It's like putting a baby to bed.
Sometimes it feels like that, yeah.
Yeah.
You should pet her. Hush, little baby.
You pet babies?
That's
Always.
so creepy. You
Yeah,
can't
super
pet babies,
creepy.
yeah.
Okay, clearly Tyler has a dog.
Yeah.
Not a human
He's like
child.
giving a newborn treats and petting it.
Don't you
They love
scratch its
this.
belly?
Yeah. This is really odd.
I taught him new tricks.
Yeah. He's putting it in the pen.
Sit. Yeah.
I'm crate training my baby.
This baby,
Yeah.
this newborn won't stand. What's wrong with it?
What is wrong? It's not listening.
It's not playing fetch at all. It's not even following this ball with its eyes.
Following this ball.
It might be blind. I'm worried.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no.
Well, the problem, I found the old videos in the basement, but they're on those tiny little mini
The
disc
tiny
tapes. So
DV
we got to
tapes.
find something to put it into, like a bigger VHS tape, and then a
We should go
VHS
back to the
tape
future.
another device. Like
We
we have
should
2 or
go
3
back to
cables
the
and cords
future.
to hook up, but I think we might have access to some of these footages.
We have so much technology, but we
One day.
can't get old technology on.
I have my old camcorder that fits them, and you just need the
Well,
old
we can make that
cord.
happen.
Apple probably
it's
sells the
definitely
cables.
Not HDMI, but I don't know what the cord is.
It's
It's something
composite.
old that we
Probably-
don't have, probably.
Red, white, and yellow composite.
the
Probably.
RCAs.
No, it's not. It was like a little clip in. It wasn't. It was
Let's
like,
really figure this out. This is
SVU.
important.
This is so
Yeah.
guys. We need to burn the midnight oil to get this video. I'm like,
No one
wait, why
Google
am
it.
I
Let's just
helping
figure
get
it
this
out.
video back?
Well,
Anyways,
well, who knows? Maybe in the future you guys will get to see. Well, and thanks for tuning into the Pineapple Podcast. May the force be with you.
Oh no.
Thanks for tuning in. Ciao. One more for the.
No, just turn it off. Just stop.
We just do.
Just press
many
just
edits
press
as we
stop.
can.
That
Do
was
it.
awesome.
Cue the music.